you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi everybody, I'm Mohammed. I'm a resident of Portland for a long time, and I'm here to, lay some thoughts. But before doing that, I want to acknowledge that we're standing here on a stolen land. It's the land of the Chinook, the Multnomah, the Clackamas, and many indigenous people tribes that have been on this land since its beginning, and now they are being stripped from their right to their land. So we need to acknowledge that before we're talking about any other issue on this land, because this is a very crucial to all the other oppressions that we are facing, whether here in the US or overseas. Directly linked to this issue is the actual right of return for the Palestinian people. Because we cannot talk about Gaza, we cannot talk about Jerusalem, we cannot talk about Hebron, we cannot talk about Jaffa and Haifa without talking about the right of return. It's the most crucial piece of the Palestinian issue. And if it was not acknowledged, there is no peace, there is no equality, there is no any other thing that can stand without the right of return. It's the most crucial and the most elemental issue for the situation in Palestine. The other thing is Gaza is being sieged for more than 15 years right now. But before the siege, there was occupation on the land. There was settlements. There were basically impacting our lives day to day by having checkpoints, by having settlements, by having side highways for settlers only. And then after 2005, when they say oh, we freed Gaza, they decided to siege the entire surrounding of Gaza, from air, sea, and the roads. So they control every single calorie that comes inside of Gaza, and they control every single element of over 2 million people who live right now in Gaza for more than 15 years. It's the year 2020 is coming. It's basically a month and a few days. In 2012, the UN has issued a report saying that in 2020, Gaza will be not livable. Here's the thing. In 2012, Gaza was not livable because of the atrocities of the Israeli occupation. Right now, Gaza is a disaster zone. Thanks, Olivia, for mentioning that how many casualties and how many terrorists Gaza was witnessed the last few days. But also, there is something really crazy here. That Israel has the right to come and suspend the life of 2 million people anytime they want, whether it was in 2005, 2008, 2014, 2012, 2019. In 2019, when they basically mass slaughtered people who were protesting during the inauguration of the American consulate in Jerusalem, where people were slaughtered. Over 60 people have been killed and over thousands of people have been injured. And always we say when the things happen, it's a crisis. But actually the crisis starts when the actual attention stops being focused on Gaza. Because you hear about the killing, you hear about the injuries, you hear about the home demolition, but you're not dealing with the aftermath. You're not dealing with the sorrow that people are facing. You're not dealing with the consequences that they're facing on their day-to-day life. Guess what? The electricity is still a big problem in Gaza. The water, the drinkable water is still a big issue in Gaza. The fishing, the agriculture, the sewage, every single aspect of life of the Gazan people have been violated over and over and over, and we need to stop it. Another thing, what's going on in Gaza is not separatable from what's going on in the West Bank. It's not separatable of what's going on in Jerusalem. It's not separatable from the atrocities that the Palestinians who are living in Israel are being subject to inside Israel, in the 48 lands. And it's not separatable from the oppression that every Palestinian around the globe is being prevented from visiting their homeland from all over the world. And that all ties us back to the right of return. And that's why it's important. Why we're here and why we're talking. We cannot rely on the US administration anymore. We cannot rely on what's called the international community. If we want to do some change, we got to take matters into our own hands. If you are, as a person, can do anything, you are inclined to do it, because if you're living on this land, you're paying taxes that funds this occupation. That can be from talking to your representatives, sending money to help the people there, talking to people, educating people. Anything matters, because the Palestinian lives matters, and because what's going on is gonna be a disaster, and it will not stop unless we stop it. Thank you very much.
Socialist of America, and he is running for Congress right here in Oregon to unseat Earl Blumenauer. Let's give it up for my comrade Albert Lee.
Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about some very inconvenient truths. So number one, Israel is a non-democratic apartheid state.
Yeah.
Israel is a non-democratic apartheid state. And the United States is complicit in the support of this country. I'm looking for my notes. So when I say that it is a non-democratic apartheid state, I'm saying that Palestinians, Jews of African descent, and many others are effectively second-class citizens. Some may have rights on paper, but they do not in reality. The state of Israel is in violation of international laws, customs, mores. It is in violation of general decency and humanity. Two weeks ago, I had the opportunity to watch your film, Imprisoning a Generation, which talked about the actual detention of Palestinian children as young as 12 years old, lack of due process, and state-sponsored terrorism to the Palestinian people, just for simply existing. Now, the state of Israel was created by the displacement of Palestinians and Mizrahi Jews in Palestine. Okay? Read brown people. For the Ashkenazim, who left the horrors of Europe after World War II. And I understand the Ashkenazim to this day deal with intergenerational trauma from the Holocaust. But that does not excuse the abuses of the state of Israel. Since 1948, the Palestinian lands have been systemically and methodically stolen by the state of Israel, with the tacit and oftentimes overt approval of the United States. The United States is complicit in the violations of Palestinian human rights through the support and protection of the state of Israel. The state of Israel, as many of you already know, is cumulatively the largest recipient of U.S. aid, and yes, most of that is in the form of military assistance. And let's talk about U.S. foreign policy. Now, U.S. foreign policy has never been about what is moral, about what is right, about what is just. It has always been about profits. It's always been about capitalism. It's always been about doing something for a relative few on the backs of those of the rest of us. Be it South America, Central America, Southeast Asia, Asia, or Israel. It's always been about dollars. So in the state of Israel, those dollars are actually converted into our military industrial complex. So the money that we give to the state of Israel is tied to them spending on military training, on military equipment, from Lockheed Martin, from Boeing, from General Dynamics, so that a few may profit while others suffer. We've got to end this. Now, for all of this aid that we give to the state of Israel, what do we get in return? We get espionage. The state of Israel has the most robust espionage system against the United States. And then it in turn sells sensitive materials to China. Now, the U.S. is complicit in the state of Israel's violation of human rights and international law because our representatives are complicit. Representatives on both sides of the aisle, supported by AIPAC, supported by J Street PAC, to support this incredibly wrong state. Now, both sides take money from these lobbyists, and then they turn their backs away from the atrocities that the Palestinian people have been suffering. Here in the 3rd District, our representative, Earl Blumenauer, has taken funds from J Street PAC in exchange for a commitment to support this apartheid state. We need to stop these crimes against humanity. We need to stop these crimes against the Palestinian people. We need to hold our government accountable, which means holding our representatives accountable. We need to have our representatives support HR 2407. Our funds should not go to assist in the separation and the detention of Palestinian children. We need to replace these folks with folks who are dedicated to peace, with folks who are dedicated to ending the suffering, and with folks who are dedicated to ending this occupation. Free Palestine!
Free Palestine! Free Gaza!
Free Gaza!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Friends and comrades, brothers and sisters, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is not just a slogan that we keep repeating. From Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, since the establishment of the terrorist state of Israel in 1948, the killing of the Palestinians, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the racism, the apartheid did not stop. Over the period of 48 hours, last week on the last aggression on Gaza, 48 hours, Israeli occupation army murdered in cold blood, slaughtered 34 Palestinians. 1/3 of those were children, some of them as young as 8 years old. And they killed 8 people from the same family. They injured another 110 Palestinians. And that's all happened within 48 hours period. So we can only imagine the misery, the struggle, the life that the Palestinians have been living under that occupation for 71 years. Friends and comrades, we're gathering here today in solidarity with the Palestinians. Because after that aggression ended, after these 48 hours, normal Israeli citizen, normal Israeli settler went back to their normal lives, normal families, normal jobs. But this is not the situation for Gazans. This is not the situation for Palestinians. Palestine that is considered unlivable by the year 2020. Gaza that 90% of its water is undrinkable. Gaza that has unemployment rate of 55%. Gaza that has poverty rate that exceeds 80%. This is the life that Palestinians in Gaza are going back to. Over 1.7 million Palestinians are trapped in the biggest open-air prison on earth. So we're standing up here today with the Palestinians. And we will keep gathering. We will keep standing up for what is right until the Palestinians have the rights they deserve. They deserve to live. They deserve the right of return. They deserve the right of self-determination. Comrades, if I have time, I just want to address another issue. Mike Pompeo, in his statement last week, he went on and said that the U.S. won't be considering the Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem illegal anymore. And that contradicts with every UN resolution that was ever taken about this issue. it was like a last hopeless attempt by Trump's administration to save his friend Bibi Netanyahu, that is facing now corruption charges in Israel. And under the Fourth Geneva Convention, an occupying power cannot move its civilians to a land that it occupies. There is over 620,000 settlers today in West Bank and East Jerusalem. There are officially over 200 official settlement in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. So that hopeless attempt by Trump, that hopeless attempt by Bibi Netanyahu, that hopeless attempt by Mike Pompeo will not pass under our watch. Not because Netanyahu is not corrupt and not because Trump is not corrupt, but it will not pass because the free people of Palestine, the free people of Lebanon, the free people of Syria, the free people of Yemen will not let it pass, and we will not let them rewrite the history of Palestine. Free Palestine, free Palestine.
She runs for the Oregon legislature, and she is a proud GSA member running for the Oregon House of Representatives to unseat Rob Noce. I'm so proud to have Paige Kreisman close us out.
Thank you so much for having me here. Now, a lot of people told me not to come here today. A lot of people told me that you're running for the state legislature. Why does what happens in Gaza matter? Why does what happens on the other side of the world matter to a candidate running for the Oregon state legislature? Well, my counter to that is that you shouldn't need an excuse to care about human rights. You shouldn't need a good reason to care about the people of Gaza. You should care about the people of Gaza because the people of Gaza are people. People that deserve the same rights as a wealthy white woman living in $1 million house in southeast Portland. So, I also want to talk about what is relevant to Oregon and what we can do here. Because Oregon, and the state of Oregon, is also complicit in the crimes of Israel. The state of Oregon has a state investment fund that funds most of our public employee pensions. The state investment fund is deeply, deeply invested in the military-industrial complex. To the tunes of millions of dollars, our tax money is going to buy bombs that are dropped on children. Now there's none of these state legislators never spoken about this. Tobias Reed, the treasurer, the state treasurer, silence. Is Tobias Reed here today? Tobias Reed, you out here? No, Tobias Reed couldn't make it, y'all, sorry. So Tobias Reed, you can do the job that we elected you to do. You can serve the values that Oregonians hold, and you can divest our public employee pensions from the war machine, from the apartheid state of Israel. So do the job that you are elected to do, and don't wait on me to get elected to come do it for you, because I will write that bill. I also want to go ahead and get out front of this anti-Semitism nonsense that gets thrown around about supporting Palestinian rights. So another reason I'm here today is because I'm Jewish. And I'm tired of people telling me that it's anti-Semitic to oppose Israel, to boycott Israel. Now I'll tell you what is anti-Semitic. What's anti-Semitic is insisting that I owe my allegiance to a settler colonial apartheid state on the other side of the world. So I'm gonna echo some of the previous speakers and call on other Jews to please stand with me against the apartheid state of Israel. The apartheid state of Israel does not represent us. It is up to us to stand up and say that the apartheid state of Israel is not who we are, and not to let the United States and the right-wing politicians use us as a shield for their far-right Zionism. So I'd like to close out with a call. One more call on Tobias Reed, who, like I said, couldn't make it today. Do your job. Oregonians don't support apartheid. Oregonians are here today. We don't support apartheid. Do your job. Divest, boycott, sanction Israel.